Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 59, Romantic Liaisons. Yuan Lu died suddenly in prison. Chen Yang was the one who went to collect his body and bury him. As Xiao Qiye promised, he settled Yuan Liu's wife and son down in a new house in Dan City and hired a decent teacher for Yuan Liu's son. Xiao Qiye's illness lasted until the snow in the Chu capital melted. By the time he could step out to attend court sessions, Shi Hongxian had already been promoted to the secretary of the Bureau of Evaluations. Shenzhequan returned the Imperial Army's authority token to Xiao Qiye. In the time Xiao Qiye took the token, he had already eyed Shenzhequan all over thoroughly. Thanking, Xiao Qiye extracted the authority token from Shenzhequan's hand. "Your Excellency the Judge. I'm not deserving of it." Shenzhequan's fingers curled slightly, as if he could not bear to let it go. Xiao Qiye swung the authority token and asked, "Have you gotten attached to it?" Shenzhequan laughed and said, "Yeah. I got used to feeling it these days." Xiao Qiye saw that the people around them had all retreated far away from them, so he said, "It's too pathetic to just feel my authority token alone." Shenzhequan clasped his hands behind himself and said to Xiao Qiye, "You've just recovered from a major illness. Second young master Xiao, you can dally all you want, but you have to know when to stop. I've been pure of heart and free of desires for more than half a month." Xiao Qiye felt sleepy as he basked in the sunlight. He shuffled his feet and continued, "The heartless cat I've been yearning for day and night did not even visit me once. Now that I'm out and about, I have to find a way to heal my broken heart." Shenzhequan bathed in the breeze and said, "It's better to forget that kind of bad egg who often ditches the old for the new and has countless new and old flames before it's too late. Wasting the prime of one's youth for him is so not worth it." Xiao Qiye said, "Bad what?" Shenzhequan said, "Second young master Xiao." Xiao Qiye wanted to squeeze his nape. But it wasn't very appropriate to stand here and do so. He spoke instead, "Well said. It's so well worded that the second young master wants to applaud." "That's very kind of you," Shenzhequan said modestly. "It's all good as long as you feel my sincerity. So, I see you've made a point of checking out who some of those old flames are." Xiao Qiye said. "You're that bothered, huh?" "I didn't go to such extent," Shenzhequan said. "I can pry out all sorts of love affairs just by sitting and drinking wine in Changyun Villa. For example, how the second young master Xiao is a regular patron and an old hand when it comes to romantic liaisons. Admirable, isn't it?" Xiao Qiye asked. "Indeed, indeed." Shenzhequan looked at him as he spoke and slowed down. "But hearsay cannot be compared to personal experience. The legendary man himself doesn't seem to be the same person as the one I've encountered. To be fair, you didn't get that many opportunities." Xiao Qiye raised his fingers to hang up the authority token. "You will understand it better once you've played with me a few more times. It's not like we haven't tried taking the time to savor and devour. How was the taste of it?" Shenzhequan pursed his lips tightly under Xiao Qiye's gaze. Xiao Qiye smiled and said, "Looks like you still remember it. Then, do you still remember what you have promised me?" "To pass Yang Yun a message on your behalf," Shenzhequan said. "Playing the matchmaker for the two of you and earning myself a cup of wine to drink at your wedding feast. Of course, I remember. I knew you were reliable." Xiao Qiye said. "How should I thank you if this matter succeeds?" "Just treat it as gift money for your wedding," Shenzhequan said absent-mindedly as he lazily looked out along the stone slabs. Han Cheng just happened to exit the hall. He waved his hand at both of them as the little eunuch beside him came running over. "This way, my lords. His Majesty is waiting." Liege Unhung sat on the dragon throne and listened as the others discussed official matters. It was soon to be the beginning of spring, a time when the planting and cultivating of mulberry and flaxseed were major issues. Sen Yu, the left censor-in-chief of the Chief Surveillance Bureau, submitted a memorial and mentioned that there were signs of public ditches in the various residential areas in the Chu capital being illegally occupied. At present, the snow was starting to melt. If they could not keep the clogged ditches unobstructed, then the streets would be flooded once the rainy season came. This was such a minor issue, at least compared to what was being discussed, or that it seemed insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Liege did not even hear him clearly before letting the matter drop as the loud voice of the provincial administration commissioner from Zongbo drew away his attention. Several times, Sen Yu tried to speak again, but he was kept getting interrupted. When Sen Yu left the palace after the court session was dismissed, he suddenly heard someone calling him from behind. He looked back and saw that it was Shen Zequan. Shen Zequan paid his obeisances and said, "As presumptuous as it is of me to stop Censor-in-Chief Sen, this humble official has an issue to seek your advice on." Sen Yu said, "Judge Shen, please speak." Shen Zequan said, "I heard the Censor-in-Chief mention the clogged public ditches in your memorial during the court session earlier. Are you referring to the unexpected upsurge of ditch water in the residential area on Donglong Street?" Sen Yu motioned for Shen Zequan to talk as they walked. He said, "That's right. Donglong Street's illegal claiming of the public ditches has been ongoing since the reign of Emperor Xiand. At the start of spring in previous years, it would flood the residential areas. But since it has not resulted in any deaths or accidents, no one really gives it that much thought." Shen Zequan promptly gave a faint, bitter smile and said, "To tell your excellency the truth, this humble official is currently residing there." Startled, Sen Yu hurriedly asked, "Has it already been flooded these days?" Shen Zequan said, "The place this humble official lives in is on higher grounds. In my immediate neighbors' attempt to lay claim on the public ditch and expand their courtyards, the eaves of their residences are already pressing up against mine. Owing to the obstructed flow of passage, sewage water had already begun to inundate my courtyard. Before this morning's court session, this humble official made a trip to the surrounding residential area. The low-lying civilians' houses are already all underwater." Sen Yu said worriedly, "It'd be bad if we were to encounter an epidemic. Let's leave aside the matter of the flooding for now. Because everyone wants to snatch those few inches of land, their houses are all built close to one another with no bricks and stones in between, it's all wooden planks. It is a major accident waiting to happen if a fire were to start." Shen Zequan thought about it and comforted him, "Your Excellency, don't worry. This humble official will speak to His Excellency the Commander-in-Chief to see if he can report it to His Majesty and send men to clear out the ditches before it's too late." "All right. I'll also talk to the Secretariat Elder again." Sen Yu lifted his foot to leave, then turned his head back and said to Shen Zequan with a smile, "I appreciate the judge's thoughtfulness. If we can resolve this matter as soon as possible, then it count as one merit." Shen Zequan cupped his hands in respect to him and saw him off. *******. The red plum blossoms in the residence had withered. When Shen Zequan arrived, Xiao Qiye was standing in his study, looking at the remnants of those plum blossoms. "It's so terribly damp everywhere with the snow melting these past few days." Xiao Qiye plucked a plum blossom branch. "That house of yours is not inhabitable now, is it?" Shen Zequan had indeed been fretting about this matter recently. He gently pulled at his collar and said as he changed his shoes, "The courtyard is already flooded. When I passed by that place 5 years ago, Zhao Hui mentioned the issue about the public ditches." Xiao Qiye turned back. "It has been so long. To think that no one has gone to fix the problem yet. Anyway, those who soak until they rot in there are all humble lowlifes. Moreover, it takes time and effort to fix the issue." Shen Zequan said with a mocking expression. "Who will be willing to do it? Aren't you going to do it?" Xiao Qiye looked at him and walked over. "This year is the first year of Tianchen. There will be a merit and achievement appraisal by the censorate. If something were to happen, the entire imperial court of civil and military officials will fight over themselves to do it? I doubt it. Shen Zequin supported himself against the wall and was about to step onto the mat when Xiao Qiye blocked his way. He raised his eyes and said, Xiao Qiye bent down to pick up Shen Zequin's boots. He pressed on the leather a few times and said, "Is the Jinyi Wei so stingy that they can't even give you a pair of deerskin boots?" Shen Zequin's socks were half wet, so Xiao Qiye asked the servants to fire up the charcoal basin to heat the room. Shen Zequin did not look too good today, and it turned out that he was freezing cold. Deerskin boots won't be able to withstand the soaking either. Shen Zequin shifted away his foot, refusing to let Xiao Qiye grab it. He lowered his eyes to look at Xiao Qiye and said, "The low-lying areas of Donglong Street are all impoverished brothels. They are all now soaking in filthy waters." Xiao Qiye remained squatting the way he was and raised his head to say, "Those brothels normally don't pick patrons. They accept everyone who has a few copper coins to spare and let them do as they please. They can't afford to pay taxes at all, and are always in arrears year after year. The lower levels at the Ministry of Revenue who pass their days counting copper coins are a worthless bunch with the specific intent to leave them out to dry hanging in the air. The residential area has also been submerged." Shen Zequin said. "They are all used to waiting, it'll be fine once spring is over." Xiao Qiye got up and said, "There are plenty of people available to work on it, but those who are willing to handle work without any merit to earn are few and far between. I have yet to eat after court dismissal today. Let's have our meal together." The maidservant came over to prepare wooden clogs for Shen Zequin. Even after putting on the wooden clogs, they did not make him any taller than Xiao Qiye. Xiao Qiye looked at Shen Zequin's slender and pretty ankles in those socks and thought of the medicine the latter had been consuming in the past. "I don't see you gaining weight during the new year." Xiao Qiye pushed the door open and led him outside. "I'm so busy that I only sleep for 4 hours a day." Shen Zequin pattered on the ground with his clogs. "I initially thought that the southern judge was an idle position with little to do. Who knew that the ways of the military craftsman would be that many? If Shi Hongxian can't keep you." Xiao Qiye turned his head aside. "Switch over to the second young master's camp while you still can. Then I reckon I won't even have 4 hours to sleep." Shen Zequin followed after him. The remaining men from the Jinyi Wei are mostly those who inherited the positions and follow in their father's footsteps, relying on their ancestors for their meals. The benefits that come with the imperial army aren't worth much in their eyes. The snow was in the midst of melting these few days, and so the yard was wet as well. Xiao Qiye strode across the water puddle and turned back to look at Shen Zequin for a moment. Although Shen Zequin was wearing the clogs, the hem of his moon-white robe would trail into the water unless he held it up. At present, it was already dark. Their surrounding was bright and clear set against the backdrop of the white, charming moon hanging up high far on the horizon. The contrast also made Shen Zequin's reflection in the water puddle thin and pleasing. He was so focused on the walkway as he spoke that he did not notice when Xiao Qiye had stopped. He lifted his white robe and, like a child, he skipped over the water puddle and landed right before Xiao Qiye. Without even thinking, Xiao Qiye leaned over to hug him around the waist and hoist him over his shoulder. The wooden clogs slipped to the ground, and Xiao Qiye picked them up. With one hand carrying the wooden clogs and one hand around Shen Zequin's waist, he headed back to the house where they had drank wine the last time. Chen Yang retreated several steps back and gestured to the guards at the back, dismissing everyone in the yard with a silent wave of his hand. Ding Tao did not dare to utter a sound on the rooftop and only showed his eyes as he watched the second young master carry Shen Zequin over his shoulder. Qiao Tianya and Gu Jin each squatted at the projecting tiles of the eaves and took a sip of wine in unison. "You didn't look too good this morning," Xiao Qiye said. "You're burning up. Have you fallen ill?" Sprawled over his shoulder, Shen Zequin watched the moon on the ground and said, "Perhaps." The grand ambition for supremacy is not something that can be accomplished at a single stroke. Xiao Qiye ascended the stairs and kicked the door open. Life is the most precious of all. This wasn't what you said back then when you hated me. Shenzhequan landed on a mass of softness. He gazed at Xiao Qiye. Just a minor illness. I'll sleep it off. Without looking at him, Xiao Qiye took off his own shoes and removed his outer robe. The maidservants entered in a single, ordered file and set the plates on the small table to serve up the dishes. Shenzhequan finished washing his hands and was about to pull at his collar again when Xiao Qiye reached out his hand from the side to pull it for him. He used his fingers to part the collar gently and saw some red rashes. It's been too damp lately. Shenzhequan nudged away Xiao Qiye's hand with the back of his hand. In order to stake their claims on the site, the eaves of the neighbors' houses have even blocked out all the light. Xiao Qiye seemed to pay it no mind and let the matter drop with an aha. Both men took their seat. As they were eating, Xiao Qiye said, "That residence of yours is no longer befitting of your status. Why haven't you moved?" Shenzhequan replied, "It's close to the Temple of Penitence, which makes it convenient for me to see Shifu. It's also on Donglong Street. If there are any movements from Shihongxian, it'd be easier to look into it." Xiao Qiye watched him eat and said, "Ji Gang Shifu can't keep staying at the Temple of Penitence as an errand runner. It'd be more convenient for you to act if you were to relocate and live together." Shenzhequan said, "Let me see if I can find any suitable residences in the next few days." As a matter of fact, he still had Grand Tutor Chi's residence in his hands. But it would not do for him to live in that residence now. It was too ostentatious and would draw too much attention. Moving house was simple, what was hard was that Shihongxian was keeping a close watch on him. He dared not put his Shifu and teacher at risk. It was already very late after they finished their meal, and the weather was still cold. Shenzhequan stood up and prepared to take his leave, but Xiao Qiye opened the windows and let out a whistle at the rooftop. 3 guards plus 1 man poked their heads out in unison. Propping himself against the window ledge, Xiao Qiye watched Shenzhequan pick his coat up and said to them, "Close the doors. His Excellency the judge is not leaving tonight." Shenzhequan looked back. Xiao Qiye did not smile. His flippancy in the morning seemed to have been blown away by the night wind. Concealed in those eyes were the secluded forest and thick fog, which became even more hazy and deep under the moonlight. Perhaps he was really an old hand when it comes to romantic liaisons, Shenzhequan thought. Just the expression in these eyes of his alone was enough. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 60, Shackles. With early spring approaching, many troublesome matters have cropped up. We have yet to discuss a plan today. It wouldn't be easy to see each other again if you just leave now. Xiao Qiye said, "So, rest up here tonight." Shenzhequan broke into a smile and said, "Just, to discuss business." The way he enunciated these words were melodious, with a hint of sensual suggestiveness lingering on the tip of his tongue. His eyes were clearly stirring up the waves of lust, even the fingers he had released from his grip at the drop of his words were plucking away at the strings of desires, rousing it. This despicable man. Xiao Qiye watched Shenzhequan intently and thought to himself. This was the real bad egg. He kept pushing against the boundaries of his diminishing limit every given second and trampled all over his endurance with cunningness and naivete, as if he was leaning next to his ear and urging him to come mess with me. The tail of the sinner that was this fox tickled its way to his legs with that teasing look in his eyes. Serious matters, Xiao Qiye closed the windows. Must be seriously discussed. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Prepare a memorial tomorrow morning regarding the public ditches, and I'll bring it up to His Majesty. Xiao Qiye lay on the rattan chair and picked up the robe that had slipped onto the floor. One by one, he set the items in the sleeve pocket onto a cabinet shelf. "You can't." Shenzhequan soaked in the bath water and said after giving it some thought, "You're the viceroy of the imperial army, you are not in charge of the official proceedings of public works nor the complaints of the commoners. It does not concern you. You will definitely draw suspicion to yourself if you submit a memorial out of nowhere. Then you bring it up. You live there, so it is not strange for you to mention it. I'll make a note to go along as the accompanying supervisor." Xiao Qiye fished out an ivory folding fan. He asked, "Why are you carrying an ivory one?" The literati who kept items of elegance in their sleeves and were particular about portraying themselves as distinguished and sophisticated. They viewed the likes of ivory and ebony as the most unbearably vulgar. Therefore, descendants of the noble clans would never bring with them folding fans made of sandalwood or ivory as they went out, regardless of whether they were well read in the classics or not. Most used folding fans of Moso bamboo, adorned with calligraphy by famous calligraphers. Shenzhequan said, "For fun. Such an uncouth object suits me the best." He had stayed in the Temple of Penitence for 5 years, so he could not engage in literary pursuits with the noble descendants. He had to be an uncouth commoner who was a culture snob feigning to be refined. Only this would be acceptable, and only this would be fitting. So, besides the ivory folding fan that he always carried with him, he had picked the most expensive-looking kind for his jade pendant that he hung by his waist. Having done groping around Shenzhequan's sleeve pocket, Xiao Qiye realized that they were truly polar opposites. Xiao Qiye's likes and dislikes seemed to be clearly distinguished on the outside. Yet if one would really dig deeper, they would realize that these distinctions were rather murky. Most of the activities he seemed to indulge in could be forgotten as soon as he closed his eyes. There were none that he truly took to heart. On the contrary, what seemed to be shady deals he engaged in to get by were the results of his own sweat and blood. He did not have a favorite dish, nor did he have a favorite wine. All one could say when the topic was brought up was that second young master Xiao loves to drink. But what exactly did second young master Xiao likes to drink? No one could really say. On the other hand, Shenzhequan looked as though he had no preferences and could go along with anything but feel him up a little, and one would be able to get a clear grasp on his likes and dislikes. He did not like strong bitter tea, just one sip and he would never ever touch it a second time. He loved eating fish. As long as the location was right and no one was watching, he could debone the fish just as gracefully and neatly as a cat. Xiao Qiye found it amusing. It was as if he had seen Shenzhequan's soft spots. Shenzhequan's waist. Shenzhequan's back. Shenzhequan's shoulder blades. He could recognize all these, even with his eyes closed. Fake tiger. Xiao Qiye thought to himself with lowered eyes as he held the robes. He could intimidate a person with a sudden glance, but after a few embraces, Xiao Qiye could sense the joy and anger behind all those gentle words and flattery of his. He was just like the moon reflected in the water puddle at night, where one provocation did not seem like it would stir up any great waves when in fact, he had already put a black mark against you in his book and would find the next opportunity to get back at you. Shenzhequan came out with his robe draped over his shoulders. His hair was still damp. Turning his head, he saw Xiao Qiye seated in the chair, playing with that ivory folding fan of his. His own clothes were neatly hanging at the side. "We aren't done discussing," Xiao Qiye stood up. "Drink the ginger soup and sit down to talk." Shenzhequan stretched out his hand to raise the curtains, but Xiao Qiye beat him to it and raised it with the fan. Both men stepped out. Most of the lights in the inner chamber were already extinguished, leaving only a glazed lamp lit. Shenzhequan felt a little hot. After downing a bowl of ginger soup, he felt better. Although he was fine during the day, he was feeling dizzy now. Shi Hongxian has been transferred to the Ministry of Revenue. The assessment for officials is around the corner, and he's in the Bureau of Evaluations. Xiao Qiye said, "This will interfere with the officials' observational appraisals from the inspections." "Did you come up with this idea for him?" Shenzhequan shook his head with the ginger soup in his mouth. After swallowing it down, he said, "It should be Xue Xiaozuo's idea. I have men in both the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of War. If they were to be transferred out because of the assessment this round," Xiao Qiye looked at him, "then our losses will far outweigh the gains." Shen Zequan nodded and said, "This isn't something to worry too much about. Other than the connection through marriage between the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Rights, Jiang Su, and the Deputy General, Zhao Hui, the others aren't too conspicuous. I can't see how Xue Xiaozuo would get a thorough read on you either. Just let everyone conduct their businesses as usual. Besides, the inspections and assessments won't be carried out by just one clan. Secretariat Elder Hai will send his men over, too. Shi Hongxian won't dare to act too brazenly. The inspection this time concerns Zongbo. The snowstorm a while back has brought hardships upon Zongbo. 10 or so people in total have died one after another. Hai Lianji should be sending an official over this year to rectify the problem." Xiao Qiye said. "Zongbo," Shen Zequan seemed to think back on it. "Zongbo isn't easy to manage now. Should they send a literary official, he can't be guaranteed to hold up his own against the bandits, nor will he be able to command the newly dispatched garrison troops. There needs to be a proper plan for this place. Even Secretariat Elder Hai himself would have to ruminate over it. At present, there is no suitable candidate in the Chu capital. It's all negotiable as long as the one assigned is not from the noble clan. Chse province is important as it's where the northeast supply route located. We'd be inviting trouble if Chse province were to fall into their hands. There is a need to plan ahead for rainy days, plan ahead for rainy days." Xiao Qiye softened his tone as he looked at Shen Zequan's weary face. After Shen Zequan's promotion, he had been running around on assignments from one end to another. At night, he often had to be at Uhua Pavilion and socialize with Shi Hongxian, who had fair maidens in his arms and a position with practically no obligations. And because he wrote tunes for Liege Unhung, he did not even have to attend morning court sessions. He had plenty of time to rest. Shen Zequan, however, had to stand guard before the emperor every day with his sword. He did not sleep at night, and during the day, he even had to deal with military craftsmen of all sorts. He was even busier when he was on duty, so much so that he might not necessarily get the chance to eat his meals at all. He did not even have the time to bother about his residence on Donglong Street, which had been devoid of light due to the blockage of the protruding edges of his neighbor's eaves. It was only yesterday that he realized that his courtyard was already flooded. The bedding in the house was so damp that there was no way he could stay there. He could send Xiao Tianya over to the Temple of Penitence to stay with his shifu and teacher. But he himself was not at liberty to so. He looked even thinner now, so forget about gaining weight after the new year. Xiao Qiye watched him for a long time, then reached out his hand across the small table to stroke Shen Zequan's cheek. That cheek was unbelievably scalding hot. It was far from a little hot. Medicine had yet to be applied on the rashes on his neck. Xiao Qiye wanted to call out to him, and yet at the same time, he did not feel like doing so. However, Shen Zequan woke up as soon as he touched him. Shen Zequan braced himself to keep his spirits up and said, "Ahhh, we do have to plan ahead for rainy days. Xiao Shi Sui." Before he could finish his words, Xiao Qiye had already leaned over to him. Xiao Qiye's arms were strong and sturdy, and it was effortless for him to pick up Shen Zequan. The bowl on the table was knocked over, and Xiao Qiye used his leg to kick it away as he said in a leisurely and carefree manner, "This second young master will now take you to the nuptial chamber." Shen Zequan wiped the sweat from his forehead and let himself hang over him as he said, "Have we already finished discussing the serious matters tonight?" "We're done." Xiao Qiye clasped him around his back and said, "And now, it's time to repay your debt." After saying this, he bent his back to lay Shen Zequan on the bedding. Shen Zequan shielded his face from the light with his hand and said under his breath, "No lights. All the clearer to see you with if there's a little light." Xiao Qiye undressed Shen Zequan in this position. Shenzequan's chest was exposed, and he suddenly felt a coldness on his nape. He looked at Xiao Qiye through the gaps between his fingers. Xiao Qiye dipped his fingers into the ointment and dabbed it on the rashes. This whole process was as if he was oiling a piece of jade. The more he applied, the smoother it felt. It was so smooth that Xiao Qiye's heart was wavering out of control. He really did not have the makings of a gentleman. "I'll have to tie you up in a while, so you don't roll all over the place. Otherwise, this ointment would have been applied in vain." Xiao Qiye closed the ointment box and took out a handkerchief to wipe his fingers slowly as he sat on the edge of the bed. He said self-mockingly, "You are the only one the second young master has ever served in this life." Shenzequan slipped into the bedding and turned his head aside to sleep. Xiao Qiye sat for a while before he rose to blow out the last lamp. The bed sank as Xiao Qiye hugged Shenzequan around his waist from behind and pulled him over from the edge of the bed to hold him captive within the crooks of his arms. "Now I got you all bound up," Xiao Qiye said. "I'll throw you out right away if you dare to kick me." With opened eyes, Shenzequan looked at the window through which hazy moonlight was shining. His icy hands touched Xiao Qiye's wrists that were restraining him and said, "You're so hard." "Uh-huh." After a moment of silence, Xiao Qiye said, "I'd advise you not to venture downwards." Shenzequan endured it for a while before saying, "I'm talking about your authority token." "Is it the authority token?" Xiao Qiye tilted his head slightly to the side and pressed it down beside Shenzequan's ear. He repeated, "Is it the authority token?" His words scalded Shenzequan. Xiao Qiye said, "You can't take it when I bite your ears, and you start trembling when I just ask a few questions. How dare you laugh at me for being rusty in bed when this is all you've got?" Shenzequan composed himself for a moment before he said, "Then why don't we try switching positions?" Xiao Qiye actually sat up and helped Shenzequan sit on top of him. He released his hands and laughed. Undressing the robes or unbuckling the belts, Xiao Qiye said, "Do as you please." There was no knowing whether Shenzequan was too sick or too feverish, but his breathing was uneven, and he was not as composed as he always was. He said softly, "Tonight." Shenzequan had yet to finish his words when Xiao Qiye held down the back of his head to kiss him ever so fiercely and guided his hand down to his sweet spot. Shenzequan cowered back. Xiao Qiye laughed at him until Shenzequan felt indignant and started to struggle. Xiao Qiye suddenly turned over and pinned him down once again under his body. The bed let out a creak as the bedding sank. It was so burning hot that Shenzequan's palms were sweating. Xiao Qiye's temperature was scalding. Shenzequan loathed this blazing heat, but he seemed to have nowhere to run, yet at the same time, there seemed to be still room for maneuvering. They lurked in this intricate labyrinth-like game of chess, gaining a moment of reprieve from the illusion of mutual dependence they came to possess in the throes of passion and intimacy. Once they sank deep into indulgence, the feeling of ecstasy urged them onward. Sweet, drunken whispers resonated in their ears. Even though Shenzequan loathed that numbing heat, he was pushing Xiao Qiye away and at the same time, also pulling Xiao Qiye towards himself. Xiao Qiye tore away those clothes and pushed himself up along Shenzequan's back. Just as Xiao Qiye had fantasized when he sat in the rattan chair, he did not miss a single inch of Shenzequan. He dominated this man, forcefully using his own scent to overpower the latter. Shenzequan wrapped his arms around Xiao Qiye's neck and bit him. The two nuzzled the tips of their noses together, once again forging an extraordinary closeness in this moment of madness and depravity. As he kissed him, Xiao Qiye said, "You're insane." Those torrents of bites that fell like a raging storm gradually settled into tender kisses, and the softness of lips and tongues dissolved away all their defenses. It was under these intermittent murmurs of words that the insane man fell asleep. Xiao Qiye caressed Shenzequan's cheek with his thumb and propped himself up slightly. Shenzequan was still grasping some of Xiao Qiye's hair between his fingers as he slept soundly. Xiao Qiye lowered his head and scrutinized him. In that instant, many thoughts ran through his mind. Desire is a shackle. In this moment, Xiao Qiye wanted to ask Zoqian Kaiu to come over to the Chu capital. Just so he could ask his Shifu one question. Can desire be conquered? But in the end, he could not ask him this question. Because he already knew that it was a question that Zoqian Kaiu had no answer for. The only one who could answer it was Xiao Qiye himself. Many people had said that he had been born at the wrong time, but he had already come into this world. To be in possession of desire was not a fault of his own making. He was merely a human. His name was Xiao Qiye. He seemed to be the polar opposite of Shen Zequan, yet he also seemed to be completely similar with him. The only one in this world who could understand the entirety of Xiao Qiye's pain and suffering without any use of words was Shen Zequan. And this was something they were both perfectly well aware of since their very first kiss. Xiao Qiye kissed Shen Zequan between his brows and on the bridge of his nose. It did not matter by which name this feeling was called. They mutually staked their claims on one another, increasingly growing closer amidst their struggles. The pit of desire was bottomless and the abyss of misery was unsurmountable. Grinding against each other ear to ear, temple to temple, was a way to wear down their agony. But this way was getting too addictive, as if they could mutually alleviate their own pain by simply being next to each other. After that bout of insatiable pleasure-making, they tacitly began to shed their shells and reveal their true selves. The ravine of the past had become a puddle. It was as if all it took was a single leap or a single helping hand to stride over it before merging once again into one. Xiao Qiye kissed Shen Zequan again, and Shen Zequan, in his slumber, tightened his grip on Xiao Qiye's little braids. Ripples washed over the white moon in the water puddle under the abundance of cool breeze, while the heartbreaker and the lover boy slept the entire night away nestled under the blanket of the moonlight. End chapter. Note: Fake tiger, a person feigning to be more intimidating and powerful than he really is. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 61, Collapse. As the hour of yin approached, it rained suddenly. Chen Yang washed up in the resting hall. After wiping his face, he looked outside to see a drizzle of misty rain adorned with tiny flakes of snow. Have the kitchen heat up the stove. Chen Yang instructed to his left and right. Serve up the medicine for colds while it's hot, then prepare the ginger soup. Has master and the judge's official robes been steamed? Send them over quickly. It's raining and snowing today, and the ground is slippery. Be careful when you go in and out to serve, don't fall, lest you make a disgrace of yourself. Before the day broke, those who served in the courtyard were already moving. Chen Yang held up an umbrella and made his way to the kitchen to check on the day's breakfast. When the cook saw him, he hurriedly got the attendant to get the lunch boxes. I heard last night that the judge had fallen ill. So, I made fish soup this morning, along with some light side dishes. I've also prepared rice porridge and steamed twisted rolls. The cook personally handed the lunch boxes to Chen Yang. These are breakfast for you gentlemen. All of you have been on guard the entire night last night. Drink something hot to dispel the chill. Chen Yang laughed when he touched the lunch boxes and said, all right. You even prepare Sheiju wine for Gu Jin. I shall thank you on his behalf. Get someone to serve up master's breakfast without delay. I'll hurry over to wait on him first. The cook sent him out, and the attendant wanted to continue sending him on his way. Chen Yang turned the ladder down and hurried back to the courtyard with his umbrella up. The 3 meals of guards like them were not supposed to be touched by anyone else. They could only take turns to get it themselves. This was a hard, iron rule that had been laid down back in Liege. Chen Yang arrived at the courtyard and called down the other 3 men. They opened their lunchboxes and stood together to have their meals. Biting on the steamed bun, Ding Tao looked at the house and said, Master is up. Gu Jin said, is the horse carriage ready? He's running a little late today. Chen Yang nodded and said, I didn't expect it to rain today. Master still has to soak in the rain later when he arrives at the palace and waits to sign his name. His Excellency the judge's cold won't go away for quite a while. Does he not plan to take a leave of absence? Who was he asking? Gu Jin and Ding Tao looked at each other, then simultaneously looked at Xiao Tianya, who had come along for the free meal. Xiao Tianya drank the porridge in one mouthful and held up a finger. Before he could speak, the other three said in unison, swallow first. He swallowed and said, he won't dare to take even a day off. My master is still considered a newly appointed official. How would he dare to be the first to take leave when the senior above him is still fine? He can't be busier than the commander-in-chief, can he? Ding Tao said, your Jin Yi way is really not good. Even when it comes to falling sick, you still have to talk about seniority. Xiao Tianya said, it can't be helped. Everyone at the top and at the bottom is watching. As the four of them ate and chatted, the door on the other side opened. The maidservants entered and exited with serving trays in hands. Shen Zequan was drenched in sweat after being embraced by Xiao Qiye for the entire night. The rashes on his neck had not gone away. Xiao Qiye had already put on his clothes. Seeing that Shen Zequan still did not look too good, he set his fingers against Shen Zequan's forehead and said, the medicine is on the table. Drink it while it's hot. Shen Zequan put on his boots and got up to drink the medicine before he draped his clothes around him to put it on. Both men stood back to back before the mirror amidst the rustling sound of clothes scraping across skins and fabrics. Shen Zequan fastened his waist belt and pushed the window open to look at the sky. He said, this rain really comes at a bad time. There's no movement last night. It's still not too late to unclog the ditches today. Xiao Qiye came closer. The maidservant behind him who was trying to put on his crown for him could not reach him, so Shen Zequan reached out to take it. Xiao Qiye propped himself against the window, and Shen Zequan put it on for him. Both men locked gazes with one another. Smells bitter. Xiao Qiye said. If you come any closer, Shen Zequan said, the smell will be even stronger. The maidservants at the sides lowered their gazes, not daring to make a sound. Xiao Tianya was already holding up the umbrella just before they stepped out. Shen Zequan descended the stairs. He had yet to walk out of the courtyard when he saw Tan Taihu hurrying over. Tan Taihu's facial expression still did not look good whenever he saw Shen Zequan, but he still bowed to him in greeting. Before striding up the stairs in a hurry, Lao Hu. Chen Yang greeted him. What's the matter? Xiao Qiye had already come out. Gu Jin put on his cloak for him while Xiao Qiye looked at Tan Taihu and said nothing. Tan Taihu kneeled on one knee and reported in an urgent tone. Viceroy. The Donglong Street Patrol Squad sent back word earlier that Uhua Pavilion has collapsed. Shen Zequan halted in his tracks and waited for Tan Taihu to continue. Tan Taihu wiped away the rainwater on his face and said, it's one thing for it to collapse on the second young master of the Shi clan. But who knew that His Majesty was inside it, too? Xiao Qiye's gaze was freezing cold. As he raised his head, the rain and snow fell even harder. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Shen Zequan took large strides out of the office. Qing was already waiting at the bottom of the stairs. As Shen Zequan hung up his authority token, he said, tell me the details. The Jin Yi Wei swiftly followed him out of the courtyard. With a hand on his blade, Qing whispered, His Majesty sneaked out on the sly. No one knew about this until the building collapsed this morning. When those courtesans were dug out, men from the 8 great training divisions were still urgently looking for Shi Hongxian. Who would have expected His Majesty to be missing when the eunuch lifted the curtain for a look once the time came for the palace's morning court session to start? They couldn't find him. At first, they went to Kwei Palace to check with Imperial Concubine Mu, but Imperial Concubine Mu had no idea either. That was when chaos erupted. It was only when the presences of Empress Dowager and third young Miss Hua were requested and the palace maids serving him were interrogated that we learned that His Majesty had disguised himself as a eunuch last night and insisted on going with Shi Hongxian to a Hua pavilion to have some fun. Shenzequan did not look pleased as he said, "There are patrol checks at all levels in the inner palace. He must have had help, otherwise, he won't even be able to stride out of Mingli Hall. That's the odd thing." Qiang lowered his voice even more. "During my interrogation, I heard the guards say that no one came in or out at all last night." Shenzequan's expression remained unchanged as he watched the 8 great training divisions march past in formation with detachment. He walked the entire way in a hurry, braving the rain. No one dared to hold up their umbrellas at this moment. Dark clouds hung over each of the officials' faces, their gloomy expressions so somber that it was as if their own parents had died. Hai Lianji and Xiao Qiye stood before the collapsed building. The collapse of Hua Pavilion had consequently brought down half the street of closely clustered buildings with it. The swill in the gutter had long overflowed, causing the entire Donglong Street to reek to high heavens in this downpour. Everyone had to wade through the water to make their way through. The Minister of Works, Pan Xiangji, was the head of the Pan family, one of the 8 great clans. Although he shared the same surname as Pan Rugui from the reign of Emperor Xiand, Pan Rugui was really not in the same faction as them. Pan Xiangji was of the same age as Hai Lianji, and had never dared to commit any major blunder while he held this position. Knowing that he would never make it into the Grand Secretariat, he had always been careful and prudent with the hope of retiring in peace after a few more days, especially since his son was already the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Revenue. He had never expected that when he fell asleep, the sky to collapse would when he woke up. Pan Xiangji could not even stand steady on his feet. He was so anxious that his hands trembled. He kept saying, "Quick! Dig quickly! His Majesty is still inside." The rainwater had doused Hai Lianji to the point that he was completely expressionless. He had never thought that Liege would be so muddle-headed to such an extent just to have some fun. Several times, he wiped away the rainwater on his face, looking as though he was also wiping away his tears. He said to Xiao Qiye, "Dig. Rescue His Majesty first." Xiao Qiye took off his cloak and waded his way down through the water to take a look at the situation. The current stand-in for the 8 great training divisions was Han Cheng's younger brother, Han Jin. Han Jin rolled up the legs of his trousers and lifted the hem of his robe to follow Xiao Qiye down. "Viceroy!" Han Jin shouted in the rain. "The bottom is already hollowed out. We dare not dig any deeper." Not only was the lower area hollowed out, but it was also all set with vats and jars. But no one dared to voice it out. These vats and jars had been smashed when the building collapsed. If Liege were to be squashed underneath, then there was no guarantee that he would survive that. The first emperor in the history of Great Zhou who was crushed to death when he sneaked out for a rendezvous, which historian would dare to write it? No one had ever seen anything as depressing as this. His Majesty rested in the upper area last night. Shenzequan removed his blade and got into the water as he said, "The place isn't deep. I fear that it might collapse further." Xiao Qiye raised his body. "Call the men from the Ministry of Works over." Sen Yu had just rushed his way over. The moment Shenzequan saw him, he immediately said to Hai Lianji, "Secretariat Elder, the public ditch must be dredged today. If this rain doesn't stop, we won't be able to drain the water. And it's near the Kaling River at the back, too." Sen Yu added, "I went to take a look earlier. The buildings along the banks have all already collapsed. The foundation at the bottom has long been soaked rotten. How long has it been since the stone bricks on the dam had been repaired? If the water rises any higher, half of Chu capital will be flooded. What has the Ministry of Works been doing all these years? Pan Xiangji, you muddle-headed fool. How many times have I told you about this, huh?" Pan Xiangji fell to his knees with a thud. His old mop of hair was already half white. He burst out wailing, "What can I do? Can you blame me for this? Those from the Ministry of Revenue are all influential bureaucrats. I've already mentioned this to them 800 years ago. What can I do if they don't allocate the funds and transfer manpower? Sensunyi, what can I do?" He scooped up this swill water, unable to speak as he choked with sobs. Kowtowing on the ground with his head, he cried out, "We are going to have to pay for this with our lives. You are a senior of the present imperial court. Stop disgracing yourself." Liege suddenly cut him off and bellowed, "His Majesty's fate hangs in the balance, we don't know if he's dead or alive. We are currently in an emergency situation. Even if you want to shirk responsibility and shift the blame, at least wait for him to be rescued first. Assign 800 men from the Imperial Army's current defense and follow the Ministry of Works to unclog the public ditch immediately. Tear down all the houses that have violated the regulations and occupied land illegally. As for the Ministry of Revenue, tally up the state treasury money without delay and assemble the victims of those whose houses have collapsed at the Temple of Penitence to centralize the distribution of aid reliefs. The 8 great training divisions shall patrol the major city gates. All entries and exits must be accompanied by official documents. We are at the critical juncture now. I expect everyone to work as one to stabilize the situation. Don't lose your composure." With that, Liege suddenly looked at Shen Zequin. "Have the Jinyue guard the inner palace. You mustn't let those who have no business in this matter take advantage of this situation to stir up trouble. If there's anyone who rebels, then act in accordance with my orders and execute them on the spot. Those starting to get restless in this heavy downpour instantly calm down under the succession of commands teeming with murderous intent." Liege walked a few steps and removed his wuxia hat in the rain. "His Majesty is the Son of Heaven," with rainwater sliding down and dripping off his face, Liege said with finality, "Our great Zhou has been in power for a century. It's still not the time for its demise." Liege Unhung was stuck underneath broken wood, facing down. The icy cold water pouring on his neck jolted him awake. He found it hard to breathe. His chest was too tightly wedged and his ribs were hurting terribly. Liege Unhung coughed and shouted in a raspy voice, "Save me." These sounds were hoarse and powerless, too quiet to be heard in the downpour. Liege Unhung shifted his gaze to see that the courtesan beside him had already gone cold. Her ghastly white flesh lay squashed between broken walls and several strands of her hair had been stained red from the dripping blood. Liege Unhung began to tremble. He could no longer recognize this to be the beauty he had been clapping hands and dancing with last night. "Save me." Liege Unhung hung down his head and said with all his effort, "Save me." The coughs of someone choking on water rang out below him. Half of Shi Hongxuan's body was soaked in the water. He was half on his back, having crashed down right on top of the jars, and his bloodied back was badly injured. He gasped for air and said, "Your Majesty, stop calling for them. No one can hear you." Liege Unhung was beside himself as he pushed at the broken pieces of wood with his elbows, but it was all in vain. One of his shoes had fallen off, and he was so freezing cold that his face had gone pale. He said, "Someone will definitely come to save me." "Of course," Shi Hongxian began laughing in a muffled voice. "You are the Son of Heaven after all." Liege Unhung asked, "What are you laughing at?" Shi Hongxian smacked his lips and spat out some sandy mud. He said, "I'm laughing at this thing called fate. Don't you find it strange how people seem to be repeating the cycle of life on the wheel of reincarnation?" Liege Unhung lifted his eyelids but could not see anything. He said darkly, "No. There's no cycle. Your Majesty's birth mother was from the Yu clan." Shi Hongxian shifted his body with some difficulty. "She was drowned in the same way." Splash. The dirty, foul water moved away from his neck and splashed somewhere else. In this thin stream, Liege Unhung swallowed. "Drowned. With difficulty, Liege recalled those fleeting and ephemeral childhood memories of his. He looked at that morbidly white flesh once again, yet what he was seeing seemed to be his own mother. The woman was pressed into the swill bucket, her fingernails raking at the ground until they became bloodied pulps of flesh. As water splashed on her face, Liege saw her ghastly white neck and arms. Drowned. Liege tears welled up. He frantically covered his eyes with his hands and yelled resentfully, "Shut up! You shut up!" Shi Hongxian fell silent. But Liege no longer wanted to stay close to this body any longer. He started to cry and shoot his mouth off, hurling abuses and profanities as he said, "Don't mention her. I am the supreme ruler on the imperial throne. My." Liege rasped for air, his face looking sinister through the gaps of his 10 fingers. "My mother is the Empress Dowager." End chapter. Note, hour of yin is 3 to 5 a.m.